In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to convert a logo into an embroidery file. Now, we're going to be using the free InkScape Vector Graphics application and also the free Ink Stitch extension for InkScape that will take our vector artwork and convert it into embroidery. So first of all, let's import the image in question, and it is this image. Let's go ahead and open it up. We'll accept the defaults, and there is our image. So we're just doing the logo part. We're not doing the text in this example. We're just doing the logo part of the image. Now, anytime that we're dealing with a symmetrical type design where the left is the same as the right, then we will only work on one side or the other, and then once we're happy with, for example, the left side, we'll flip it over to the right side, and that will give us a perfectly symmetrical design. You'd be surprised how many people will sit and digitize an entire design even though it's symmetrical. We only have to do half the work, flip it over, and then we're done. So with that said, let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do first is show you a tool here in Inkscape that's useful, and that is I'm going to create a rectangle around the left-hand side of the design that I want to keep. Okay, so once I've done that, I'll switch back to my selection tool, and I can do it in the drawing or I can do it in my layers palette. But what I need to do is click on my image, hold my shift key down and click on my rectangle, and you'll see that they're both selected. I could, if I wanted to, just come to the layers palette here and click on my image, hold the shift key, and click on my rectangle as well. But then we'll come up to the object menu and we'll choose clip, and we'll choose to set that clip. And what that does is everything inside the rectangle it retains, and everything on the outside it doesn't. Now, one thing to keep in mind is I'm going to switch over to the outline mode here in Inkscape, and you'll see that the image is still all there. Now what I did is I went up to the view menu here, display mode. You see we have normal, and then view, display mode, outline, and then we have view, display mode, toggle. So you see I set this keyboard shortcut to be Alt Q because I toggle between those two views all the time, and so you can see how much easier that is than to go up to the view display mode every single time. So definitely watch videos on how to set up your keyboard shortcuts in Inkscape, because that will save you loads and loads and loads of time. All right, so with that done, now we can kind of move on. So the next thing we want to do is, again, the image still exists, and what we want to do is we want to basically trim away anything that sits outside our rectangle. So we'll go back over to this mode here. So we're in normal mode, and you'll see that there'll be an option now to crop image to clip. So all I did was right click on my image, crop image to clip. And so now when we go to the outline mode, you see everything that existed outside our rectangle has now gone bye-bye. And that's what we need. Okay, one other thing to note here is if you look over here in our layers palette, you see the tiny little scissors. That indicates that this image has in fact been clipped. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to trace what's left, and what trace means is to convert it to a vector. Now if we look at this image, you'll notice that it is quite terrible. In terms of using images to convert to vectors, it doesn't get much worse than this. You see all these artifacts everywhere, and it's just not very nice. So we're going to go ahead and convert it because Inkscape does a very good job even with very lousy artwork. So we'll come over here to Trace Bitmap, and you'll see that nothing really happens here initially. We do have the live update selected, but we are in single scan mode, even though we are working with multiple colors. So certainly we could switch to multicolor mode. And as soon as we do that, you'll see that that has been updated and that there's some information there. But I'm going to stay with single scan mode, and just to show you, options. We have lots of options. So here we are in single scan mode. We're going to use the brightness cutoff, which is the most common detection mode. There are others, but brightness cutoff is one of the most common ones. And you see threshold here. Now what threshold is doing is it's looking at the image, and the darkest pixels in the image is what it shows first. And as we slide our slider, notice how we have more and more pixels coming into play. And now we slide it to a certain point, and then all of those dark pixels have now been displayed. If we keep going, you'll see that as we keep going with our threshold, now we see the blue come into play. And we keep going, and we keep going to a certain point where now all the blue is in play. So you see that there. All of the blue is in play. So now this looks very similar to what we have on screen here. So now we can go ahead and choose apply, and there is our end result. Now, standing back from 50 feet, that looks pretty good, but we haven't really zoomed in to see, did we achieve what we hoped to achieve? So let's go ahead and slide this over. Take a look. Okay, it's not terrible. You see that right there. That's not great. But honestly, for as lousy as the artwork was, I'm not going to complain too much. That's not too bad. Now, if you look down here, you could see that really that should have been clipped right there. So we can trim that up a little bit, but we're close with very little work. Okay, and that's ultimately kind of what we were after. So we're really close, but not quite there yet. All right, so our next bit then is to trim that just a little bit more. So we're going to turn on our snapping, and we will go ahead and draw out a rectangle. I am going to go into outline mode just so I could see this a little bit better. But there's our rectangle, and what I want to do is I want to pull the edge of this rectangle right to, see, it's wanting to line up there. I want to just pull it over a little bit. I might even go just a fraction more. Yes, I like that right there. So we're going to run with that. All right, so there's our rectangle. Hold the shift key down and select our image. And then we are going to go to our path. And then we are going to choose difference. And you can see now we have a nice sharp line there. And then down here, nice sharp line as well. And that is what I'm going to call good. All right, so next step then is to break all of these elements apart, because ultimately this top piece we want separate from this, separate from this, separate from this, and separate from that. So if we go to path and we choose break apart, we do want to be mindful of our keyboard shortcuts, try to use those at all costs. It just does a quicker job for us. So now you see that this piece is separate from this piece, separate from this piece, and this is not separate, okay? But we need it to be separate. So how do we get there? Well, let's see what's causing the problem. And you can see that's what's causing the problem right there. There's a little bit of a connection right here, but it's really easy to dispose of that connection. So we're going to go ahead and double click. Okay, so now it's showing all the nodes that make up this part. So we're going to click right here and add a node. Just double click, and we're going to click right here and add a node. And then we're going to break those nodes apart. So I'm going to select them both. I have one selected because it's highlighted in blue. I hold my shift key and select the other. And then just remember the keyboard shortcut, please. This is something that you do over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So use the keyboard shortcut, which is Shift B, B as in boy. Now, what if you don't want to use the keyboard shortcut? Well, you could come all the way up here and choose break path at selected nodes, and it would do the exact same thing. Okay, so now that's taken care of. Now we don't really see anything happen, and this piece is still 1. So that's still a problem. So we need to break the path. And to break a path is Shift Control K. To combine a path is Control K. Again, this is a function that we do 1,000 times over, so just remember those keyboard shortcuts. So to break the path is Shift Control K, and then to combine the path is Control K. So let's break it apart, right? So we have our path selected, Shift Control K. We didn't see anything happen, but did it happen? Indeed it did. You see, there now that path is broken. We broke the nodes, and then we broke the path. Now, just to show you, we can put it back together again, right? We'll select both parts, and then we'll just hit Control K, and then we're back to where we began. That's now one piece. So Shift Control K. Put that one to memory because you're going to use it a lot, okay? Excellent so far. We're moving right along. So the next thing that we want to do is maybe resize this to the finished embroidery size. So let's go over to inch mode here. And this we want to be about, for the width here, we want it to be about, let's see. I'm trying to think here exactly how I want this. Let's just do 1.75, okay? And that, now this is only half the design. So if we were to mirror this, right, then the overall design would be about 3.5 inches. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, so our next thing then is just to clean up what we've got going on here just a little bit. And all of this is going to be converted into satin stitches. So in order to have satin stitches in ink stitch, we cannot have any fill color. So that's step number one, get rid of all the fill color. And then let's click on something. Let's do black maybe. Shift click on the black square, and now we'll have black outlines for everything. Now we do know that these pieces here are not going to be black in the finished product. They are going to be blue. So we'll shift click and just to kind of differentiate those a little bit. Okay, it's not a big deal. Now, if we wanted to, now this is just kind of, again, just to show you what we can do. Obviously, we don't necessarily need to do this, but if I select these three shapes and I really do want this outline to be that color, we can do that. So we can come over here to stroke paint here, and we can use our eyedropper tool and just come into our document and click that, and now that's exactly the same color because we sampled it from the original logo. Like I said, I don't know how big a deal that is, but nonetheless, we did that. So I want to take a look at this situation down here because this is not a complete, because remember we kind of trimmed it away here. So you see that this piece, in fact, I can go ahead and get rid of this one just so we can see it. There's a gap here, okay? And I don't want there to be a gap there because we want that to be connected, okay? So here's another thing where I really think it's worth remembering. The keyboard shortcut to fill the gap is Alt-J. Okay, so that's the keyboard shortcut to fill the gap, and I think that's worth putting into memory because it's something that we do a lot. But obviously, we do have that same option up here where we can, you see there it says join selected endnotes with a new segment, and that's only going to be visible when we have the node tool selected. So do keep that in mind also. All right, and that keyboard shortcut of Alt-J is only going to work if we have the node tool selected. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind there. So we'll go ahead and use Alt-J here, but then we can go ahead and get rid of that node because we no longer need it. All right, now we can leave this kind of the way it is, or we can clean this up a little bit. So if we look up here, you see how this is rounded right here? We can go ahead and make that a cusp node. And even though it's still rounded, we can show our transformation handles. And we can just go ahead and say, hey, I want this down here and this over here. And now you can see we have a nice pointy point. That's not necessary at all. I just wanted to show you a little bit of node editing that we can do if we decide we want to. I'm going to go ahead and add a node here, right? We're going to make it a cusp. I'm going to get rid of this node here, and then we're going to do something very similar, where we just go ahead and use our transformation handles here, and we just make a little bit more of an intentional corner right there. This node here we do not need. Okay, so there we go. Now, once you get into working with Inkscape more and more and more, you'll just get a feel for when we need nodes and when we don't. So we need a node here, 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 and here, but all of these we don't need. We don't need any of those. So I'm just going to come in, let's do a big old swath path here, and just hit the delete key, and you'll see that my path barely changed at all, but we don't need all those extra nodes. And so that's generally, again, something you wouldn't absolutely 100% need to do. It's just something I like to do. So take that for whatever it's worth. All right. So now we've taken care of this shape at the bottom. Now we're going to focus on this shape at top, and we're going to do something, pretty similar. So again, we have all of these nodes. We know that we don't need any of those. So we're going to go ahead and delete those. And we're going to zoom in a little bit here. We know we don't need any of those. So we can delete that. So that's all well and good. I think that, and we can fine tune that just a little bit there. That corner is fine. Down here we have a bunch of nodes that we don't need. Let's make sure that is a cusp node. We don't need this one, so that's just getting in our way. So we'll go ahead and straighten that out. And then we have this node here. And we don't need this node. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. So we just have that node all the way up to that node, and that's all we need, oddly enough. And then we have that node. Now this, we can go ahead and make it a cusp node as well. And we can just adjust it ever so slightly. And so you see we have a nice corner there now. This here, we'll go ahead and make it a cusp. We know we don't need this one. Go ahead and get rid of this node. And to get rid of nodes is Control-Alt and then clicking on them, and that gets rid of them. Okay, so there we go. So now we kind of have this cleaned up the way we want. Minimize the nodes, and there we go. So that piece is taken care of. So now we'll go ahead and kind of move on to this piece, and you can see here that we have all kinds of nodes. Now, the interesting thing is we don't need any of them. So if we come in here and delete those two, you see that our actual layout did not change hardly at all. And that's good. So now we could just go ahead and keep deleting those nodes. And you'll see that our path doesn't really change too dramatically. We'll go ahead and delete all of those nodes. And then we'll delete all of those nodes. And we can recreate this shape with just those two nodes. So that's, and again, you'll kind of get more of a feel for what you can and can't do as you work with Inkscape more and more. All right, so we go in here and delete all of those. Our path didn't change too significantly. It did change a little bit, but not too significantly. Okay? And then we just kind of continue on this process of cleaning all this stuff up. I am not, even if my path does change a little bit here. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I do want to just get rid of these nodes, whether the path changes or not. Okay. Now you can see there it changed considerably, but again, we're not concerned about that for right now. Let's turn off our transformation handles, get rid of that extra node there. And I'll explain why we're not too concerned about it here in a second. But again, so our main focus is just getting rid of these nodes that we know we do not want. You see, we really got them stacked up down here. So we'll get back over here. We'll bring this back down. Select those two and choose join. Remember when we broke it apart, we had to join this back together? Well, we had to do the same thing with the blue side too, because we broke it apart too. Because remember, the blue used to be black, right? So we'll go ahead and delete all that. And then finally, we're going to delete that. All right. So now we've really wigged out here. All right. So, but that is essentially where we want to be at this point. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our shape here and we're going to put it back to, I'll tell you what, let's do. How do we want to handle this? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and just put it back up here, right, where it kind of was. And then we did resize this, so that's fine. We'll bring it out here. We'll turn off snapping here. And we're just going to resize it enough so it's basically back to its original size. And then what we can do is, you can see our new shape is just a little bit different. So now what we can do is, how do I want to do this? I'll tell you what. Let's take our blue shapes and let's give them a different outline color, something we can really see. And then all we're going to do is click and here, and we're going to look at our transformation handles, and then we can see, here's our transformation handle, and we can just readjust things. So I'm pretty, like right here, for example, we can move that in more closely to where it was. I'm not sure what's happening there because we want to make sure it's a cusp node. So that way we could adjust each side of it independently. So you see how easy it is to manipulate those handles exactly where we want them. So now we'll move on to this. So we have a node up here. We had two nodes on top of one another, so that's not good. So there's that one. We'll put that one right there at that point. And then we can control that outline there. And we click up here, and this one is going to do that. So this one's going to control that. Okay. So you can see there, we can do that. And we can do that. Just manipulate it till we get it to where we want it, and we're pretty close, I think, right now. And then finally, we'll move on. Looks like there's two on top of one another, so we'll get rid of that one. Right? And then we have our transformation handle. That's not a cusp. This is a smooth node. So we do need to make it a cusp. And when we do that, we can take control of just this side. So no need to panic if something goes awry. It's easy to fix as long as we know what we need to fix. Now, this customer actually approached me to make him an LED sign with his logo. But I thought, well, I have the ability to make an embroidery. This is a new business, and so he'll probably want some hats or who knows what that I can also show him. Hey, we could do this, this, and this, and this, and this. So business owners tend to like to see their stuff on lots of stuff. Okay, so there we go. So I am happy with the way this looks now. That looks good. And you can see we're really close to what our original artwork was as well. Okay, so now this is back to where we where we have everything exactly the way we want it. So now I can just go ahead and duplicate it, right? So if we go over here to layers palette, you see I did duplicate it by hitting Control D, and then we can go ahead and mirror this like so. And then if I turn on snapping, we can then snap these two sides together. And so now we have those two sides together. I am going to move this back again. So let's grab all of this. And it's kind of interesting how Inkscape does snapping different than other vector graphics applications, because it was wanting to snap to um, the boundary. So let me see if I can get this to show. So it was wanting to snap to the boundary. See, it says bounding box corner, when really we want it to snap to the cusp. And now we can go ahead and weld these two pieces together. So we have that piece, shift key, this piece, up to path, and union. So you see, now that's one piece. And then down here, path, union, and now that's one piece. And then we can go ahead and let's just get rid of our original image. We don't need it anymore. Although, I take that back. Let's go ahead and grab these pieces and change our stroke color so they do match. So stroke paint, eyedropper tool, and there we go. Okay. So now we can get rid of this. And then here, we'll go ahead and resize our logo to our finished embroidery size, which we decided would be 3.5 inches wide. And there we go. There we go. Okay, so that is our logo. And now the next part of the process is to go ahead and convert it into an embroidery file. I'm going to stop this video here. We've got to the point where we've vectorized our logo, and then in our next video, we'll take a look at how we go about converting this into embroidery stitches. Thanks for watching.